Hey everyone, how you doing today? My name's Kirsty, aka Beth Bookish, and these and a lot more are going to be recommendations for the Reader Adventurerathon mini bonus round. Firstly, I apologise that this is getting to you a bit later than planned. It's just been a really rough couple of weeks and my head has not been in the filming and planning phase state at all. So I am a bit delayed and I do apologise. What I've done, obviously we've got each pathway, we've got the prompt and the recommendations, and then within those I've split them into ones that are specifically LGBT and then non-LGBT, because as I said in the announcement video, June is Pride Month and all three of us, me, Ren and Jonah, all of us are part of the LGBT community. So I decided to make it that there would be bonus gold for completing LGBT books within June. Obviously still read LGBT all year and still read that kind of representation all through the year. Don't just do it in June. But if for this readathon specifically you do it in June, you'll get bonus gold. I'm kickstarting with our bounty. One of the bounties I can't really recommend because obviously it's subject to you and your reading, which is to read a buddy or group read. The only thing I can suggest is the Chestnut Springs read along. We're on book 3 now, and also my own Patreon that you can now join for free and you'll gain access to the book club. We are reading The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. This isn't LGBT to my knowledge, but it is a group buddy read, so if during the months you're looking for a group read and you can't find something, if you want to read The Graveyard Book with us, come along. For the other one, we had This Chest is Cursed, which is a book with specifically cursed items, not sort of people or places. It has to be an object or an item that is cursed. I really struggled with this one because it's not like one of my buzzwords. It's not really something that I've read a lot of. So I did do a bit of scouring and I have found a few. But in terms of LGBT, I've only got 2 books, and that is Dark Rise by C.S. Pacat. This has LGBT representation and this features cursed weapons and cursed armour. And then we also have the Bone Spindle by Leslie Vedder, where there's cursed objects such as the spindle, and various objects throughout the book are also cursed, and this has a sapphic romance. And then for non-LGBT prompts for cursed items, we have Mao by Rumiko Takahashi. This has a cursed sword and various... There are people that are cursed as well, but there's a lot of sort of cursed objects. Continuing with the manga, we have Jujutsu Kaisen. This has a lot of cursed objects, including Sukuna's fingers, which are items that are technically belonging to someone, but they are detached and have been mummified and have been cursed for a long time. So that counts as an item rather than a person. And then for novels, we have The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, because the One Ring is pretty cursed. And I'm sure there's other items, but I can't remember. Ren will know. And then I've been told on good authority that the Dragonlance series features a fair few cursed items as well. I've never read them, but my uncle has when he was younger, and he said that he remembers there being quite a lot of cursed stuff. So that is for This Chest is Cursed. And now going to our pathways. Obviously we have 4 pathways, so you'll only need to do one of these. The first one up, we have Festival or Holiday. Again, as said in the announcement video, this can be either a one-day festival, like a food and drink festival, or it can be a fantasy world festival, or any kind of holiday, so Christmas, Hanukkah, Eid, the Mid-Autumn Festival, Lunar New Year, anything that is a festival or a sort of a religious or cultural holiday. If you are genuinely struggling and cannot find anything for either of those, I will also accept the literal term holiday, so, you know, someone going on vacation. But our LGBT queer rep, we have The Raven Boys. This starts with the festival of St. Mark's Eve. And so this one, it's not mentioned a lot and it doesn't happen all the time, but it is mentioned. So this one does start with a small holiday festival. Like, one of the biggest ones is obviously any sort of Christmas romance, but as it's not really Christmas time, it's completely the opposite time of the year for that. I've not really included any because it's not really the right time of year for it, but obviously if you feel like reading a Christmas book, then add in a Christmas or wintry book. But Red, White and Royal Blue is a very good one for this because it does feature Christmas and New Year. Cemetery Boys is all centered around Day of the Dead celebrations. Fake Dates and Mooncakes by Shirley is the Mid-Autumn Festival. I read this last month and it was so good. I gave it 5 stars and I had a really cute, wholesome time with it. And then Gwen and Art Are Not in Love by Lex Croucher. This one is a medieval fantasy type festival set around the marriage and engagement of these two, but they have a jousting tournament, which I kind of count as a festival. And then book 2 of the Dark Shades of Magic series, A Gathering of Shadows. This features the Essentak, which is a battle, like another tournament type festival that happens every few years within this world. And then for non-queer recs, we have The Hogfather by Terry Pratchett, which features a winter festival. And then we have a bunch of manga. So Your Name Volume 1 features a rice wine making festival in the local region of the female lead. The Yakuza's Guide to Babysitting, they attend a festival with the Yakuza's daughter and take her to see that. Masterful Cat is depressed again today. There's various festivals and things that happen throughout, including New Year's and Christmas and things like that. And then My Hero Academia, we have in the first 3, after I think it's volume 4, 5, 3, 4, 5 is the sports festival that they have every year and is a big national event. And then towards sort of this volume, so volume 17, we have volumes 17, 18, 19, 20, sort of around that number. We have the school's main festival that is sort of just like a festival where each of the classes put on a little show and things like that. And then we also have Fruits Basket. A little into the series, we have the school festival within Fruits Basket as well. For Battle or War, this is by far the biggest of the categories because there's so many different ways. We can look at a typical fantasy that's set in a war-torn country. We can look at a contemporary military type book. We can look at romance. We can look at workplace rivalries. We can look at breakups. There's so many different aspects and so many different ways that we can approach this prompt, so I'm going to come at you with as many as I can. The queer recs, we have Dark Rise by C.S. Pacat because this takes place between 2 factions that are battling with each other. The Dissonance by Sean Hamill. I haven't yet read this, so I'm not entirely sure what the queer rep is in here, but I have been told this is queer and is about a group who went through some stuff when they were younger. They're now all adults and they get pulled back in when they were not really wanting to. Fence by C.S. Pacat. There's a lot of C.S. Pacat in this pile, I've just realised, which is a contemporary graphic novel about fencing, but a lot of the characters in here are queer. And then the final C.S. Pacat, we have the Captive Prince trilogy, where there is wars going on between different nations. And then we also have the main romance in here, which is Enemies to Lovers, and has gone on to my favourites shelf because I just loved it so much. Not All Himbos Wear Capes by C. Rochelle. This is a superhero and a supervillain who secretly fall in love with each other and don't realise it, and it's so good. Conventionally Yours by Annabeth Albert, which is a contemporary nerdy geeky setting with 2 people who play a trading card game, who go to a tournament together and along the way realise they have feelings for each other and maybe they're not enemies like they thought, maybe they're not such big rivals as they thought they were. And another one, and the final one, which is also rivals to lovers and is also contemporary, is Cafe con Leche by Emery Lee. And this features Theo and Gabby. Theo and Gabby, whose parents own rival restaurants, but when both restaurants are at risk of being sort of made redundant, they team up together to save their homes and fall in love. This one also is a sports romance as well because it features football, or soccer if you're wrong. And then the non-LGBT recs, we have My Hero Academia. So many battles, so many fights occur during this series. Again, with One Piece, pirates on the sea, constantly fighting. There are constant battles, constant wars going on here. Spy Family, there is an overarching war between two nations, and so there's mentions throughout each of the volumes about that war and bringing peace and what each of them is doing to do that. Promise of Blood by Brian McClellan. Now that I own it, I can't not include it in as many videos as I can to make the void happy. So this one is about overthrowing a king. Apparently there is magic and stuff in here as well, and I'm very excited to get to it. If you want a more contemporary setting, romance, we have Flawless and Heartless. I've included this because this is more like a battle of wills type situation, and I think they're both good for that. Before the Coffee Gets Cold features a lot of familial turmoil and battles, and it's more about the emotional battles and more about conflict of interest. Full Metal Alchemist again has lots of battles. There's nations that are at war, there's inner conflicts, there's sort of civil war and all sorts of stuff going on in here. Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross is two journalists who are writing about various things while their gods are at war with each other and there is an overarching war. Traitor's Blade by Sebastian de Castell. This one features a lot of, again, internalised conflict, but also there is a lot of unrest between nations and the nation itself is falling apart. And then one that I picked up recently, which is another contemporary romance, Love at First Night. This is a woman who gets her dream summer job teaching a kids' night school at a castle, and then she comes into conflict with a sort of loose member of the royal family who's a little bit disgraced and has been sent there as a bit of a punishment, and they don't hit it off. So those are the recommendations for sort of featuring a battle or conflict. Then we had, for Pathway 3, we have like a and or, like a this or that. So we had set in the dark, or if you struggle to find books that are set in the dark, so they're either set at night time, set underground, under the ocean, those kind of things, or they primarily take place at night, or is, if you can't find anything with that, is featuring ghosts. Starting off with In the Dark, and our queer Rex that I just had and I've already lost. We have The Darkness Outside Us, which is set in space, so it doesn't really get much darker than that. Also set in space, we have Gideon the Ninth, which is for lesbian necromancer set in space, is my understanding of that series. We have the Dark Shades of Magic trilogy, because Black London is very dark, very ominous, and from what I can remember, quite a lot of the books are set during the night and a lot of the action takes place in the dark of the night. And same with the Raven Cycle, a lot of this is spent in caves or underground or in dark forests, and so or at night time, so a lot of the plot line is centered around that. And then the primary story isn't queer, but there are queer characters and a queer cast involved, so I'm going to include it in the queer section. We have Lore Olympus, which features a lot of going into the underworld, and again, that is dark and ominous. The non-queer book recommendations, we have the Lunar Chronicles, again, set in space. We have the Kitty novel series, specifically Kitty in the Midnight Hour. She has a radio show and she works through the night, and her radio show's main time slot is midnight. We have Dark Fever by Karen Marie Moaning. In this one, there's quite a lot of dark, shady stuff in terms of going underground, but there are also, again, most of the book is set during the night time and most of the action takes place during those hours. Another one that's a nighttime one is Midnight's Twins by Holly Race. This all centres around dreams and going into a dream world, and dreams are stronger and the nightmares are stronger during the night. Legend Born by Tracy Dion, which I guess could also kind of go into the queer section as well, because there are queer characters within it. This one is set during, a lot of it is set at nighttime, and a lot of the action again takes place at night when they do all their trials, and at the end they have to go into like an underground system. And then finally we have Woven in Moonlight by Isabel Ibanez, where the magic relies on the moon, and obviously you can't really use the moon and its magic if it's not nighttime, so it is in the dark. And then if you struggle with that, then there is the alternative of having ghosties. And so going back, we have Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas, which features ghosts, which primarily is about a ghost. We have The Raven Cycle, where there is ghosties and ghoulies involved. 16 Souls by Rosie Talbot, which features loads of ghosts around York and they've all gone missing, and now these two seers have to try and find the ghosts and what's going on. And then we have Marked by Death by Cage Harper, which features ghosts and necromancers. And then non-LGBT books, we have The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman, and Terry Pratchett's Discworld, specifically Weird Sisters that I know of. It has a king, it starts with a king who's murdered, and we follow his ghost throughout the book as he kind of sees what's going on and adjusts to the fact that he is now dead and argues with death, which is hilarious. And then our final category of this video is going to be Pathway 4, which starts, like, the main prompt for this is, or the ideal prompt for this is a book featuring the clergy, so nuns, priests, priestesses. I would accept a world that's heavily influenced by gods as well, but pretty much the ideal is that the main character is one of these members of the clergy. And then if you struggle with that, it's libraries or librarians. So for queer rep, we have A Psalm for the World Built by Becky Chambers, which features a tea monk. We have The Reanimator's Heart. While neither of the two main characters are part of any kind of clergy, the entirety of the story is about nuns who have been killed. Gideon the Ninth is another one that features, I believe, nuns and has a religious system. And then we also have Covenant by Lysandra Vuong, which is a webtoon that's now being published as a graphic novel and features gay priests. I really enjoyed this one, and is pretty much all of the main characters are part of the monastical community and are featured quite heavily. And then for non-LGBT, we have Mao and Inuyasha, both. Mao very loosely in the first couple of volumes has got a priestess in there, but Inuyasha in particular has, well, Kagome is the reincarnation of a priestess. There's a monk, and then there's also the main priestess herself comes back. So there are, you know, a lot of priests and priestesses in that as well if you're looking for some manga recs. We have the Greatcoat series by Sebastian de Castell. Certainly in later books, like books 2 onwards, we meet, I think she comes into the first book, but Ithalia, she is a priestess and is a part of that. And there are things like saints and things like that involved in this series, so absolutely counts. For the Wolf by Hannah Witten features a priestess, and part of the ritual of her becoming the bride of the wolf is all to do with religion, and whenever we switch to the sister, there's a very heavy influence from a priestess on that side. Vespertine, she is a nun who I believe gets possessed by a demon and has to work with the demon to uncover what's going on in her convent. And so she ends up teaming up with this demon to work out what's going on in her convent. And then we have Gods of the Wordwood that I picked up if you're looking for a big chunky fantasy. And this one is all about gods and featuring various things to do with gods and saints and stuff like that. We also have The Merciful Crow by Margaret Owen. This one features nuns and the clergy. And then the final one was, like, if you couldn't find anything to do with the clergy, then a book with libraries, librarians. I'll also accept booksellers and bookstores because that opens up a little bit more. But I've only got 2 queer recs that I could find on my shelves, and that is The Bookshop and the Barbarian by Morgan Stang, and then Delilah Green Doesn't Care. Claire, who is one of the main love interests who is the love interest in this, she runs a bookstore. And then for non-queer recommendations, I have Zora Books Her Happy Ever After. Zora is a bookstore owner. Days at the Morisaki Bookshop. I actually need to read this myself this month because I've applied to I might be getting a copy from the publisher of the sequel, so I want to read both back to back. The Last Library by Freya Sampson. The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. And the archived series The Dark Vault, which features The Archive and the Unbound by V.E. Schwab. I don't know if this one is queer or not, but if it is, please do let me know. Those are a whole bunch of recommendations. It's not an exhaustive list, but it's the best I could do with what I own. Please do feel free, both here and on Discord, to add in your own recommendations. And if you're stuck, there's always you can always ask below, and there's always on the Discord the book recommendations chat that has been very active recently. And yeah, I just hope you do join us. I hope you enjoy. Please let me know if these recommendations have helped you choose a book. It's always good to know if I have recommended something and you've picked it up. So please do let me know if this has been helpful for you. And if you are taking part, what pathway are you doing? I hope you're all good. I hope you're staying safe. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, please check out my Etsy. I have just recently relaunched it. I've got some new items in there. I've got the Chestnut Spring series now available. I've got candles from the Raven cycle now available, and there are still a lot more to come. I hope you're all good. I hope you're staying safe, and until next time, bye.